Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I'm joined by Holly Deschenes, my co host and producer. Today, we're going to be getting into this idea of permission to make mistakes. I think there's a lot of judgment around when people make missteps. Generally, there's this fear of what people will think. And so that makes us adverse to taking risks. And really mistakes are how we learn and grow. And, it's a big part of what we do here is try to develop this self-compassion that's taking the shame out of the equation. It's a lot of times the reason we don't move forward is because of this opinion from other people and how we're going to appear to others. It just really activates that stress response. It can kind of be a little bit paralyzing. And if we're going to create some forward movement, there really has to be this flexibility, this ability. We have to create this space for allow things to develop, and that includes taking new actions. And new actions are generally imperfect actions. It's like me trying to figure things out. That's why we always talk about being playful, kind of taking the pressure off things, not attaching to outcomes so much. And really I think a lot of us are harder on ourselves more than anyone else can be, and that's this a lot of what we do here is to shift this relationship to a healthier way because we might be making big deals out of things that, really people don't care about. Just on our own mind, we feel like there's all these judgments. And so, we're just going to kind of explore why mistakes are necessary, why they're part of the process, really kind of take the shame out of it and how we can learn a little bit faster, how we can get things moving. It's really about this journey back to yourself because a lot of times we've been criticized about things and that's what creates that I need to be perfect. So this is the Perfectionist podcast here where we're going to try and explore those ideas. And just like many things, I think that the perfectionist needs to be a phase. That's how we really get good at things. So we're just going to open these things up. So Holly, to start off here, is there anything that comes to mind? Any stories, any thoughts you have about maybe being hard on yourself where you allowed things to open up and then you got a lot of clarity, anything like that?
I don't know that I have like a specific story that ties into gaining clarity and then things opening up, but I do think a little bit about the fear around making mistakes. I talked about this the other day with someone where we talked about the development of the inner critic voice and how you get that.
Yeah.
And the example that I give in terms of my inner critic voice is that it was born out of a place of a stepfather who wanted things to be perfect. And
Mhm.
I think about then how that developed, like the voice that's very hard on me, and it correlates all back to the high school research paper covered in red ink and like that kind of thing. And sort
Yeah.
of, so that's, I think about that as how we develop the fear to make a mistake because of those kind of experiences.
Mhm. Yeah, it all has to come from somewhere, right? And yeah, generally it's going to be from our environment growing up. I had similar experience working for my dad. It just kind of felt like everything had to be perfect. That's how he like trained us, and any little mistake was everything was like made out to be a big deal when these things really aren't, right? But it's when you're hardwired and stressed, like you become very reactive, right? And that's a lot of that. And it still shows up today. I'm in the process of like building a new website, putting a lot of new things out there. And yeah, I noticed when I go to sit down to work on these things, I started getting a lot of like jaw tension. A lot, my neck starts to tighten up and it kind of just feels like my brain short circuits a little bit. Right. And that's that, terrified to make a mistake type idea. Right. It's all that training of it's a long journey and it's like that's how you do make mistakes. But when we carry the shame from it or we're trying to protect ourselves from the past, that all gets locked into our nervous system. It's still this society wants us to align with rules, right? It's like, oh, if I do these things, I'll be safe or I'll be okay. But when you're dealing with a creative process, you're trying to go outside that. You're trying to go outside the rules. You're trying to be creative and basically that you need this freedom to roam. And so that's something I've been experiencing recently as I've tried to step more into my creativity. It is just this shutdown in my system. And so then I have to go meditate and breathe through it and relax and coach myself through like, hey, this isn't a big deal. I can put some stuff out there. It's not going to be the end of the world, that kind of stuff. You can always change things. So yeah, I mean, these things have real effects and they're so subtle that I think it's normal for many people where they don't even question it. I would say an indication is going to be if you feel like you have to force yourself to do something, that forcing piece is there's the resistance within you. That means that I have a negative attachment that I can't just go do something. I'm trying to protect myself. I'm trying to do what's safe. And so that's why I have to fight through it. So procrastination, things like that, it's these things are getting activated and they're playing in the background. And yeah, like the to access creativity, we need to be able to relax. We need to be able to step out of fears and things like that. And so it is this like tug of war. It's wrestling with the mind and trying to get it to release these past things. And that's the whole premise of this podcast is these things are powerful. They affect us on a daily basis, whether we're aware of them or not. And yeah, we all started somewhere. And if you had a pretty intense upbringing, if there was a lot of harsh judgment, criticism, and things of that nature, feeling like attacked, there is going to be these protection mechanisms built into your system where it's designed to keep you safe, but what keeps you safe at one phase is always what holds you back at the next, right? And so we're always just trying to, as I go to take new steps, these things get activated and I have to reconcile those, because otherwise I can't fully step into the new thing. I might only be bringing 90% of myself to the table, right? And so to be successful, we need that full commitment. We need all of us on board. And we're trying to integrate these parts of ourselves from our past that were left in pain and in the wound. And there's these reactions from them. And so we have to fight through them. But I don't really like that idea of fighting through it. Let's learn and understand about it. Let's heal it, which means a perception shift about that. So rather than my dad being reactive, it's more about why was he reactive to begin with, right? Like what happened to him? You start expanding the picture to try and see it through this different lens because these things are often generational. Whatever I got from my dad, like he probably got 10 times worse, right? And so it's all these things get distilled down. And so that's where we develop compassion. If somebody's carrying a lot of pain, that's what that looks like, right? And and so it's either I can choose to just embody that pain and then pass it on to the people around me, or I can learn about it and transform it. That's that compassion piece is forgiving and letting go of things. It is about seeing the bigger picture. And it's always about like, I'm doing these things for me, right? Because I want to be creative, right? And this is a creative block. So it's just like, can I can I be motivated by the pain and push through things? Like, yes, but that's not gonna be the best version of me, right? That's gonna be still the me functioning from pain. And so as we heal these things, that's where we start to unlock these higher potentials. And that's it's a really important idea there, right? Where it's like I want to share my gifts. I don't want to share my pain. I think that's like a key thing that people need to look at. Because if we're all just operating and running from our pain, you just start wounding other people around us as well, and that keeps everything going. So it's about transforming it, taking it to its highest level, and and it is like it's a reparenting process where you're basically reparenting the younger version of you to feel safe and okay so that you can align with the things you're trying to accomplish. So any new step we're taking is going to be some sort of risk in terms of I don't have data about what this means for me yet. Like I'm venturing off into the unknown. I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. And if I just operate in these patterns, I get the same result over and over again. It's safe and secure in terms of it's what I know, but it's also that's what makes me suffer, that's what makes me unhappy, is I wanna have that comfort, but then I also want the growth, and so now I start to have this disconnect here where I don't feel like I can pursue the things I want, and that's what really causes our pain is, like, I feel like I have to shut down and settle, and if we get enough of that, then it just feels like such a big mountain to climb. Wherever you're starting from, it is about getting a deeper sense of awareness. It's about taking a deeper look and what is my resistance to whatever I'm trying to do here. And generally that does come back from this place. A lot of us have these combative minds, right? Where it's hypercritical, like every mistake I make, like I'm really hard on myself. And then that further perpetuates that shame that we're trying to let go of. So number one thing we always talk about here is like, where do these things come from? We're already touching on that. This is conditioning. It's whatever environment, that voice in your head, the inner critic. It's what you heard growing up. It's the people around you. It's their beliefs. It's their thought patterns. And a lot of times, well, until like age 7 or so, like we don't really have this ability to filter. So we just absorb all this information. And when we absorb the information, it's like a lot of our beliefs are just what was given to us. It's not what we chose. And so this work is about choosing what we want to believe. And part of doing that choosing is detaching and unhooking from the past version, which is what was given to us. And so these things can run our life as long as we let them. And in many cases, people don't really change much at all. They don't really look at these deeper levels, and that's why they don't feel like things are possible for them. It's really in this wiring. That's the key to our freedom, because then our mind expands. We open up to new possibilities. We believe that we can achieve them by taking the steps. And as we take the steps, we're confronted with our work. And so that's this idea of making mistakes is it's a necessary part of the process, because we're always going to be shown what we believe. And that's going to be revealed to us through our nervous system. So anything that's bringing me tension and stress and negative thinking, that didn't just start today. It started from way back when. And so we want to take a deeper look and rework that stuff. So we have why do these things happen? It's cultural conditioning, basically cultural norms of like, you're supposed to align with these ideas. And if you don't, you're like an outcast or whatever. School, we're all programmed to think the same way. And if you question that, like you get bad grades, right? It's all those types of things. It could even be sports. If I had a coach that was kind of a hard ass and just really volatile, it's like I might be walking on eggshells while I'm trying to play a sport, right? And so that's in that place, I'm more likely to make mistakes actually, because I'm operating out of fear. So that's going to affect my performance as well. When we have these volatile characters around us, it puts us on edge, and it makes us feel like we have to be perfect. And that's where this all starts is we feel shame if we don't perform the way that is expected of us. So that can include the type of reinforcement we got from our parents. Like, let's say a parent was really detached most of the time, unless like I got like a good grade or did well in sports, then that's the only time I got praise. So that's going to create a scenario where I feel like I have to perform to get love. I have to achieve in order for people to love me or give me care. Otherwise, I'm not good enough, right? And so that's where all these things start, is this relationship with essentially how we give and receive love, right? It's like, am I loved for who I am, or do I need to achieve these things in order to get that? If I do, now that starts this perfectionist mentality. That starts this chain of like where I need to work really hard and I need to achieve all these things, and that's the only time I get approval. And sometimes the longer that goes on, usually that's not even good enough, right? Usually it gets to the point where like, oh, it doesn't even matter what I do, that person's never happy, right? So it gives us this external focus. It puts us out there trying to please other people, and in that effort we lose ourselves. That's the thing, is it's unrealistic expectations that are placed on us. So if we're talking about the school system, if we're talking about any of these things, it's like I'm supposed to be like everybody else, otherwise I get punished. You're having to conform with things that you might not be aligned with. There's a million different ways to learn things, right? And usually it's through experience, not through reading a book. It's all these things that where we feel like we have to adjust ourselves in order to align with whatever the system is. And that's where we lose touch with ourselves. That's where I start seeking other people's approval, is because me being me wasn't good enough. Me being me led to negative consequences. And so I had to adapt this way of being. And so the journey back to yourself is kind of seeing this for what it really is. It's seeing the bigger picture of like, okay, well, there really is no one size fits all approach. Many people like can be brilliant at one thing and terrible at other things. The creative side, you have people that are super creative, but They don't care much about like the day to day, like business type stuff, right? Or whatever. And you have people that are very business minded that have like zero creativity or social skills, right? It's like all these things. Do you need to be an expert in everything? Like, absolutely not. I think anybody is going to enjoy doing what they do the best, the most. The more you can align your life in a way that supports you, that's true to you, like that's where you're going to feel the best. But if I'm forcing myself constantly to do all these things I don't want to do or I have no interest in, that's going to be like, well, like, oh, I have to do this because this is how society functions. To some degree, there is that. The further along we get, we want to align our life in a way so we're doing less and less of that stuff. It's really the shame that locks us in of I'm supposed to be good at everything and I'm supposed to know everything because I might have got punished for things that I didn't know. And so I had to pretend from that place. I had to pretend I knew what I was doing. It's really sad that this is the way it is, but that's why we have this work, right? It's self-development is really about unlearning so many things that were taught to you. And it's also about believing in yourself again. It's about getting back to confidence. And so to get back there, we have to see these things differently. We have to see it as we have to zoom out and detach from the way that person reacted. That wasn't actually about me, it was more about them. We have to create these spaces to start to heal. And it's a bit of a process. I'd say the number one thing we need is the ability to make mistakes. And that's this idea of taking new steps, because that's what starts to loosen up that energy where I'm not as tightly bound anymore. Because a lot of perfectionists, they won't actually be able to put anything out there. So it needs to be perfect first. And perfection is just kind of this moving target. And it's also to whose standards as well. There's so many things here that it's really the way you learn anything is you experience it, you put it out there, and you keep iterating to make it to improve upon it and to make it better and to build the confidence. So we need that freedom to kind of restore that side of our brain that's unstructured, that's playful, that has fun, that isn't results oriented. But if we engage that aspect, it actually brings new life into everything that we're currently doing. So it's about activating all of us, not just sticking to these structures and these rules in order to align with society.
I keep seeing memes that have this saying on them: first make it exist, then you can
Mhm.
make it good.
It's a creative process. And I think a good one is always musicians where they just love to play music, right? But then it's like, oh, well, now I need to make money doing that. It takes the soul out of it, right? Where it's just like, oh, well, I have to go play for these reasons. And now I'm disconnected from the thing I love. It's kind of seeing how can I blend it all together? How can I work through it? And so part of that is initially anything we're not familiar with, it is going to be stumbling. It is going to be like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. But it's that willingness to dig in and figure it out and balance things out so that we can be productive and we can be connected. It's this mixture that we're looking for. So the ego is always trying to protect us, and what's the fear of judgment? It's yeah, what will people think of me? Which could be this idea of loss of status. So if I'm seen as like an imposter, if I feel like if I'm seen as a not knowing what I'm doing, how do people equate that for me? All these things, they seem like risks. We can't fixate on that stuff. And I mean, a lot of times we do, but it's also, if I stay in that mode, I'm locked down, I'm paralyzed, I'm not doing anything actually. So much we do here is to create space to mix things up, to try things out, to experiment so that we can start to get familiar with these aspects of ourselves that are shut down.
If we're at the point where we are working on moving past the perfectionism, what's your thoughts on thinking about those mistakes differently?
We need to take the intensity out of it. And so this is going to be a perspective shift. I need to be able to see it differently in order for it to not be so intense for me. If I'm taking a step in, as I described before, where it's just like my body's locking down on me, I have to find a way through that so that my body starts to relax and so that I can have the forward movement. We have to see this idea of really that there are no mistakes in terms of we reframe them as learning experiences. Reframe it as this necessary part of the process of I need to be playful with something to start to understand it better. With every step I take, that's going to be giving me feedback. It's going to be showing me what I believe about the situation, number one, and that's going to be mirrored through my thoughts. Okay, so if I have these criticisms, these self judgments coming up, that's going to show me a little bit of what I have going on internally. It's going to, and basically, the ego is always trying to protect you. It's trying to shut down your forward movement. It's trying to get you to stand still because that's what it knows. As I start to move forward, I'm going to have some resistance and I'm going to have some negative thoughts. But we're trying to get this tipping point where I'm more committed to the action. I'm more committed to my desire than the safety of the past. And once again, the safety of the past is actually an illusion because it's just you living the same day every day. And I don't know if that's what we're here to do. It's this idea of I have to take the steps. There's going to be some anxiety there. There's going to be some tension. And as I take the steps, I'm going to start to experience what I'm working towards. And this is, so if I have a goal or a target, I'm going to start moving in that direction. What are small steps I can take? And with each step, your mind's going to be like, oh, I'm not sure what this is going to be. We just have to allow ourselves, give ourselves kind of that permission to look stupid, to get over the embarrassment. Because if we're standing still, that's just predictable, but it's not fulfilling. So if I want fulfilling, that means I'm going to have to take some steps. And so it is detaching from what's known and allowing these things to play out. As we're taking new steps, there's very few people that are actually just kind of pointing out how you did it wrong. That's more just your inner critic, usually. There are some of those people, but that's not going to be dominant. You're going to pay the most attention to those two. Let's say you just start posting videos online. There might be 10 good comments and one bad comment. The only one that's going to matter when you first start out is the bad one, because that's your mind trying to protect you because it's from embarrassment, or it's trying to preserve your identity. That's perceived as a threat. And really, it's just somebody on their keyboard, like in some random part of the country or whatever. And what are they actually going to do to you? Is that actually a threat? Probably not. So it's taking those steps and then paying attention about what surfaces for you. That's your feedback loop. Is what am I experiencing when I take the steps? Where does my mind go? That's where we're creating awareness. Where my work is going to be like, yeah, why do I tell myself that? Why am I scared to move forward? And it's usually linked to some experience of like, oh, I took a step and I made a mistake. And then somebody did like point it out, or somebody did, or I was punished for it, or whatever it is. We need to kind of soothe the mind, being like, hey, that was a long time ago. This is today. We need to start to get our mind up to speed, which means like, yeah, I'm going to have those thoughts, but I don't have to believe them. I don't have to attach to them. And if they're really intense, like I probably need to dismantle some of the the story behind it, which is going to be taking a look at my past. It's going to be this reflection of how can I see those situations differently so they have less power over me. Really, also with mistakes, there are course corrections too. Like maybe I just have this general idea of something I want, but I don't have the specifics. I'm not super clear on what I want that to be. And so, really, just as we take some actions, we get things flowing. And as you progress, you start to get a better idea of what it is you actually want. And so I might try out different things, there might be closed doors. There might be, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Right. And so that might, it's starting the path and then adjusting along the way. So a lot of times we think we need to have the big picture before we start to take the steps. And then that seems too far off. So we don't take the steps. So it's just about experimenting. It's just trying things out. And as you gather more information about something that's unknown to you, you're going to start to get a better idea of what you need to do. It's like going from this like general outlook to more specific over time, which is really the natural process of things. Where as I get more specific, I'm starting to filter things down and I'm starting to align with the way that I'm most interested in, the thing that really excites me, the thing that really gets me going. Let's say you could say, look at like coaching or whatever. There's a million different types of coaches now. Well, I'm going to be a life coach to start off with. And then it's just like, I might do that for a while. And it's like, okay, this isn't really it. I'm going to want to get more specialized. I'm going to be, well, this is actually what excites me more. So I'm going to start to head in that direction. Each experience is to help build the confidence. I'm not going to have this hardwired confidence in me as I'm just starting out. I need experiences to pull from. I just start heading in any direction. And then I kind of trust that gaps are going to start to fill in as I'm being playful with it. That was kind of cool, but I don't really like this aspect. So how can I adjust it so that I'm doing more of the things I want to be doing? And so it's just kind of this, it doesn't have to be so serious. You don't have to have it all figured out. But the ego wants that. The ego wants you to have the title hammered out. It wants you to have everything set up. It wants all the details before you even know what they are. And the only way you get to know what they are is by experimenting, by stepping into it more. And then that's where the clarity starts to come. We need to be able to head down the road and make adjustments along the way. And through our mistakes is we're going to learn about, yeah, like, yeah, maybe not really into this, or this isn't really one of my strengths. Do I want to do the work to make it a strength? That's another question. Because if I'm not super passionate about it, then I'm back into forcing myself. Like, oh, I need to force myself to do this. And now I basically sucked the fun out of the thing I want to do. It's allowing these things to develop. And the way we do that is we give it space and knowing that you're never going to do it perfect. You just put yourself into situations, you see what happens. Your mind is going to give you backlash. It's going to tell you that you should stop, that you don't know what you're doing. It's going to tell you all those things. But do we just latch onto those ideas and then use those as our reason why we don't move forward? Or do we explore why we think that way? Because it's really about redesigning your mind to support what you want to do. In order to redesign it, we need new inputs. Early on, I think travel's a big mind expander for people, right? Like, let's say you're just raised in a small town. That's all. Maybe there's like a bigger city nearby that you go to once in a while. But that's kind of scary. So maybe you do a little bit more of that. And then from there, oh, what are other big cities like? Or what are other countries? You start to get these experiences where you start to see, hey, like everything's kind of similar, but there's nuance, there's differences everywhere. And then that's how you start to figure out what you want. And so it is throwing yourself out there, allowing yourself to fall on your face, and just, we could leave it there and we can bury it in shame, or we could be, well, this gave me a lot of information, so I need to rebuild myself back up, and then I need to take another chance because every failure is just, it's only a failure if we leave it there. It's more, if I continue to develop it, if I continue to work with it, it's just an ongoing process of me getting more clear on what I want. And it's that willingness to take the actions to back things up. I'm going to take these steps. It might not go the way I want it to, but at least I'm going to gain some information here that's going to help develop my thought process around it. And then that's where specifics are going to start to fill in. So some good examples of this is with athletes, especially trying a new sport, trying a new position in a sport, something like that. Everything has its specifics you have to learn. We have to be willing to step into that, I'm a beginner here. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm going to start to learn the basics. And if I really start to like that, then I'm going to keep going with it. Then I'm going to get more into specifics about like, how can I continuously get better at this? Like, what's the proper technique? What are different things I can try to try and take it to a new level? So that's a version. Another one's entrepreneurs, people that start businesses, is it's like many of them fail many times over. I'm going to try this business. I don't like it, but I'm learning things. And so now I'm going to try again with a different business, right? You just keep doing it. And each time you should be learning things. You should be learning more about yourself in that process. You should be learning more about your strengths and weaknesses. As we get clear on those things, now it's like, if I have these big weaknesses that I don't want to develop, then I look to other people that have those as strengths to support me, right? That's how I would build a team. It's like, where am I weak? This person's strong here. They can do it 10 times easier. I don't want to learn it. That's kind of part of that process of like, through you making the mistakes is how you gather that awareness. That's how you learn that information. Another one would be artists, musicians, things like that. You're playing around with things. You're trying to get creative. And so that's going to be, not everything's going to be a winner. You have to just keep at it, keep iterating, keep putting stuff out there. A lot of the famous painters, they only needed a couple good paintings to be considered some of the best in the world, but that was through like probably thousands of reps. It's through all this. That's how you get to know yourself. You have to overcome the blocks, the challenges every step of the way. And that's how you actually become great at something, is through working through the problems. And so working through the problems is going to mean making mistakes. It's going to mean things didn't go the way I wanted it to. I need to make adjustments to try and bring it to a higher level. We see it as just a natural process. It just takes courage, to be honest with you. How can I develop the courage? Well, generally, I have the courage behind things that are meaningful to me. I want this outcome more than I want the past. So I'm going to start to move in that direction, and I'm willing to risk the judgment and the failure and all those things that come with it because I want to get to this point. It's seeing it as everything's this ongoing process. And once you master it in one area, now we have this good track record where if I try something new, I see how I took that journey with one thing and I can kind of superimpose that process on other things too. So the better I get at one thing, now it's like I can start to learn other aspects faster because I went through that process. I kind of know how it goes now. If I really went through developing the courage to take the steps there, it's going to be easier for me to do it the second time and the third. And so once again, the entrepreneurship piece is people fail, they start new businesses, each time it gets better. And so they don't, but it's detaching from the shame. It's detaching from this idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, just because something didn't work out. That gave me a lot of information and I built myself stronger from that. And so the second time is going to be better and the third, right? And then pretty soon you kind of get a system down where you just know how to do things really well and you can apply it to a number of different disciplines. We view mistakes as it helps clarify our path. So as we develop the courage, now it's just like, well, as I'm taking the steps, new data is coming in constantly. So with each mistake, I'm going to learn what doesn't work. That's a very important idea. What's not working, it might be bigger adjustments or it might be smaller adjustments. With social media, they always talk about testing ads and things like that, right? I need to try different versions to see what hits, right? And there's really no way to do that unless you're putting things out there, unless you're trying things out. So you start to narrow your focus and you start to align with the best practices, the things that work the best. That's what mistakes help you do. Mistakes are also mirrors. Okay. So they're going to be showing you your blind spots. They're going to be showing you where you need to develop. They're going to be showing you these unprocessed emotions. They're going to be showing your limiting beliefs and also your hidden assumptions about things. So until we get familiar with something, we make judgments about it. So I'm going to make assumptions without actually experiencing it. And you see this all day, every day. It's like people, a good one is with athletes, right? It's like the people that are just fans. They're like, oh, these people get paid all this money. They should be able to do all these things, right? But they're not like in the game. But yeah, you don't really know how hard it is until you're there. It doesn't really matter how much you're paid. We're all human beings. We all have these things we struggle with. We all have phases we go through. When you're in the game, that's where it starts to dissolve a lot of the judgments and the assumptions because now you're experiencing it. We can either grow through failure or we can grow through safety. The safety, it's going to be very, very limited, right? We're not going to be getting a lot of new data. We're going to have our comfort zone and we might just branch off here and there and add little pieces. And there's no judgment on that. That's okay. But if we're trying to push limits, that is going to be taking risks. That's going to be taking bigger steps. That's going to accelerate our path. That's going to accelerate our learning. If we see it through the proper lens, if we see it as like, oh, this is just data, I'm just going to work with it and get better, rather than this didn't go the way I wanted to, so I'm going to shut it down and I'm done. Right. So those are big differences. And I look at in my life, it really is this nothing's ever a finished product. I'm always just iterating. I guess I've detached a lot from the judgments and the opinions, because I talk a lot about going through this gauntlet. When you branch out for the first time, everything feels more intense. But that as you stick with things, like you feel that less and less because you're just more connected to your vision. You're just connected to what you want to do. And then you also start to see how, most of the people that are throwing the criticism aren't actually happy themselves. They're not living the lives they want. So you start to see it for what it is. And so it has less power. Right. And so that's part of that process as well. I'd rather take the steps, make mistakes, and get criticized for it than to stand still. At the end of the day, that's kind of what it comes down to is like, well, do I just want the predictability and the safety that brings, or is it, do I want to live my life and do I want to learn new things and make it an ongoing process once you start on the process and you start to get wins under your belt, it's just like, well, yeah, I don't really want to live in any other way. It doesn't make sense. So you just kind of continue on.
You made me think in that a little bit of that. I'll butcher it because I don't have it memorized, but I think it was Theodore Roosevelt and the Man in the Arena.
Hmm.
That whole quote from that speech. It's that idea. You've got to be from where the criticism comes from, right? So
Yeah, and a lot of times it's just projection. Honestly, it's people that didn't give themselves permission to pursue what they wanted, or there could have been some tough circumstances where they didn't feel like they could have taken the steps. And so there's a little bit of that regret there. I think a lot of people project that. That's why it's important to move forward in life, is so you don't become a bitter, resentful person. Because if you're not pursuing the things you want, like that's what happens. You start thinking of all the things that you didn't do, and then people that are doing it, now we have judgments and criticism towards them, but that's really just what you've got going on inside. And it sucks, but there is always a path forward no matter where you're at, and you don't have to be that way. But life can be very difficult. Some of us were dealt extremely difficult hands, and so it could just be you never felt like anything was possible for you because it was very tough from the get-go, right? And so that's the thing, is it's just it is about what you expose yourself to, and getting around people that think bigger or think differently. And that's generally what starts to open the doors, is if you kind of see people that maybe started from where you did or something similar and then they climbed out of it somehow, that might be a good example if you've really felt like life dealt you a pretty tough hand. That's that self-compassion piece that I think we need no matter what. I think it's this realization that, yeah, things have been very hard, and things can be a phase or they can be your entire life. We have to decide what that is, but the difference between the phase and your entire life is going to be mindset. It's going to be, what do I tell myself about this? Am I feeding my mind better things that start to make me believe in possibilities, or do I just accept that life is just kind of this eternal suffering? These are all philosophical questions. It's just kind of knowing that, yeah, some people, you can get hit really hard with things and it can feel impossible, but there is always steps you can take no matter where you're at.
for us to start to break the pattern around the fear of making the mistake. You and I have talked about some of this before, but it's going to come, and even what you said earlier, it's going to come through this idea of taking these little steps or these little actions. So maybe talk about giving yourself the permission to take those little steps to experiment into the things that you're trying to learn.
We're trying to create new energy. So if I live a very predictable life, if I have my set routines, like I need to find some ways to shake that up. And that's going to be experimenting, and it's going to be following your curiosities too. It's allowing new things to flow in. And that's what's going to challenge your system. That's what's going to shake things up, where you start to develop this idea of that there are possibilities. So I could be very stagnant, but if I have exposure to something that makes me believe in more, that's where we start our journey. The willingness to take steps, like that's this idea of experimentation, of like, how do I get out there? The first piece is like, we know that, I say it time and time again, the mind is simply a record of the past. It's just stored all this data of what's happened to you. And we've told ourselves certain things about that. That's the narrative, that's our judgments. And so we're trying to shake that up with new experiences. It creates uncertainty. I don't have the data to pull from. Okay. So that's the first step, is we have to understand that taking new steps is being okay with uncertainty. And we could call that a risk in terms of, I don't really know what to do with this yet. And it might work, it might not. It's starting to create some space there where it's okay that I can take some steps and not be sure of what's going to happen. Generally, we take steps that aren't high stakes, especially to start off with. But usually it's just, once again, we're trying to be playful. We're trying to be curious. We're trying to follow our interests. And so that just means I'm going to try something new, and I don't know how it's going to go. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't, I might be insecure about it. I might have doubt. I might have anxiety, but it's like, just start small with something. That's you stepping into uncertainty. And the more you do that, the more natural it's going to feel. Because in that process, you're also waking up your feeling. Because if I've lived this very structured, predictable life, odds are I've kind of numbed out to a lot of things too. When I start to take new steps, I might feel more. That's going to wake up some things of I'm going to have some more anxiety. I'm going to have some different things coming up. And that's kind of that access point. That's us opening the mind to try and get some new data. We're taking the pressure off of things so we don't attach goals to things immediately. I'm just trying it out. I'm just I'm just experimenting. And as I experiment, I'm here to learn. I'm not here to achieve something. We're not trying to accomplish a goal. We're just trying to learn something new. So that's kind of that childlike wonder we're trying to activate. I'm curious about something, so I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to start to get some movement going in that area, and as I take steps, that's how I deepen my learning in something. We talked about this before, where the people just like reading books and listening to podcasts over and over again and then not taking any steps. Well, I don't actually like complete my learning until I start to apply the steps, until I start to take some actions in alignment with the things I'm learning, because that's how I familiarize myself with it. I'm trying to embody these ideas, and the only way I do that is through experience. That's how we actually learn is through the experience. So we're going to want to keep it small and safe. It's safe to fail. This isn't like a high stakes thing. It's just like me trying stuff out. There doesn't have to be a bunch of eyes on you or anything like that. It's this permission to kind of look stupid, to not know what you're doing, to be awkward, and that's how we get the energy moving. It's just small steps that you feel like are obtainable for you, and that's what's going to get the energy flowing. And as we get some small wins, meaning like I tried that and I actually liked it, so maybe I'll try it again, or I'll try something similar, or I'll take it a step further. We start to go down that road where we're trying to build some confidence, because everything starts with basics and then we get more into specifics down the road. So it's just like, yeah, just start learning the basics in different things and start taking steps with the basics. And then as you do that, you'll start to know whether you want to stick with it or not. As you stick with it, that's where you start to deepen your learning, because everything has levels to it. And so I might just want to stay at the first level. I might want to do the first level in a lot of different things, right? So it's allowing yourself to have that freedom, because it's like when we're engaging the mind in new ways and challenging our system, that's really what helps develop resilience. That's what helps develop confidence. Because if we're not getting that, then it's just like I'm very limited in what I know and what I've experienced. And so that creates a lot of insecurities. So if I can just kind of open the door to a lot of small things, like that could really enhance my life in a lot of ways. These things don't have to be major steps. It could just be like, I'm going to dabble in a lot of stuff. If I find one that I really love, like that's where I might want to put more action behind it.
If our listeners are thinking about ways that they want to take the steps, they've listened to this podcast, they're like, all right, I got it, Brandon. I'm ready to take a step. Let's talk about the practice steps or the reflections or the things that start to actually point people in the right direction.
We talk a lot about asking deeper questions, and this reflection, it's important. Many of us are caught in this kind of continuous stress response of always just acting in our routines. The reflection is slowing down, kind of isolating yourself, right? So that you can be with yourself and you can really explore your thinking and think your mind, right? And so prompts are super helpful because it allows us to go a little bit deeper and think consciously about stuff, which starts to wake up our subconscious. I would say some good questions we could look at here are, where am I holding back because I fear making a mistake? So if there's somewhere that you have desire behind it, but you're not taking the steps, it's just like, well, what is stopping you really? And generally, when we ask that deeper question, it's going to be like, oh, like this happened in my past, or I tried that and it didn't work. Or if you tried that and it didn't work, then we try different. We keep working it to try and get some movement going, because not everything's going to click on your first try. I mean, often it doesn't. And so it's allowing, once again, that space to just be playful with that process. Another question would be, what would it look like to try anyway, with curiosity instead of judgment? If we can put ourselves in this frame of mind of, once again, we're taking the pressure off, I'm not making this out to be anything. I'm not attaching goals to it. I'm just doing it because I want to try it. That's its purest form of like I'm interested in it. That's more likely where we're going to get to where we're going to be able to step out of judgment and just have fun with something. And I think the way we the way we squash something, the way we take the fun out of it is we make it serious. We put too much on it too fast, and now it doesn't have that space to kind of catch our attention and our curiosity. So it is approaching things with curiosity. Like I said, we're trying to wake up that side of the brain, because that's where all the new stuff starts happening. The last one is, what's one safe mistake I could allow myself to make this week? So we're taking the pressure off. We're taking a step that's interesting, that doesn't have any stakes attached to it. And it could just be for you. It doesn't have to be anybody else around, but you're trying to create safety in your system because that's what allows you to take more steps. Is like, I made it through this and I'm okay. So what's the next step? So how can I create a safer environment so that I'm not making this out to be a big deal? I'm not fearing embarrassment or rejection or any big thing, but I'm just taking the step to experiment with it, to have fun with it. And there's nothing attached to it. It's not going to be the end of the world no matter what. So it could be, let's say you get experimenting with cooking or something like, oh, I'm going to try a new meal. I'm going to like, whatever it is. I'm tired of eating the same stuff all the time. So I might mess this up, but at least like I'm expanding my mind. At least I'm like developing the skill. And as you take those steps, now you can start to, is this an interest for me? Like, is this something that excites me? Do I want to learn more about it? That's kind of where it starts, is you just pull at one string to try it out. And then from there, we might have some more to work with. But we don't know that until we try.
I love that cooking example. It sounds like a discussion in our house. If we want to close this one out with the key takeaways or your final thoughts on allowing the space for learning through mistakes. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
It's really, how can we take the pressure off stuff? How can we make it not a big deal? Mistakes don't define you. It's more of a refinement process. So, yeah, I made mistakes in my past and that caught a lot of criticism. Maybe I was raised in a harsh environment where I was more kind of paying attention to the emotions of others rather than myself. And so it's just really kind of seeing these things for what they are, is like, are you still in the same position? Do you have more freedom now? Because if you do, then it's more of just, you're carrying a lot of the past with you. It's affecting how you show up in your daily life. It's shutting down opportunities. It's shutting down your ability to experiment and be playful and have fun with things. And so much about finding joy in life is doing things because you want to do them, because it's something you're interested in, something that excites you. And so it's about allowing yourself to stumble through that process, which is actually, you're going to have more courage around things that excite you, that you actually have a bigger desire behind. So those are the clues of things to look for, where you might be like, okay, this is something that's worth breaking out of my shell for.
So, this is another great conversation. It's always kind of a good topic to think about how we can learn through mistakes and grow through those things. But if the folks listening are interested in working more closely with you, let's talk about the best ways for them to contact you and what are some different things you've got going on or coming up that people might be interested in.
Yeah. So if you'd like to go deeper in this work, you can visit my website, brandonthielk.com. So on there, you can schedule a free 30-minute strategy session with me, where I get to know you a little bit better and share how I can help. Also, you can register for my newsletter on my website. That'll be every Monday. I send out the lightning report. So that gives some insights for the week and some reflection exercises, and then also what's going on with my business, where things are heading. Also, we're putting together a group event outside of Madison, Wisconsin. That's going to be October 25th. That's going to be a live event, so you can get some live coaching. There will be spots available for session work, one-to-one session work on the front end and back end. So that Friday and Sunday. And so be on the lookout for that. So the event will be, half the day will be teaching, the other half will be live coaching. So group coaching is pretty cool because we all have similar issues. And it's sometimes it's easier to hear it through other people than ourselves. So, that usually creates some cool dynamics and some shared experiences where we start to see how we're all connected and we all have kind of similar struggles. And so that can be super cool to see that stuff come together. So if you're interested in that, definitely reach out. And follow along on Instagram at Brandon Thielk. That's where I post the most regularly. And yeah, please like, subscribe, and comment if you like what you hear, if you have any suggestions about things you'd like us to talk about. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that's all great. Just like every week, all that stuff links wise will be in the show note for all the socials, as well as the website, all that stuff in the show notes. So cool.
All right. We'll
All
see you
right.
next time.
Talk to you later, Brandon.